And every time you talk about it, I feel like you guys have kind of like this glowy haze over you of like, it must smell really good.
If someone likes the scent, they would just use it all day, every day, a couple times a day to help you transition from a moment of sweat to whatever is next in your life.
I understand you two are married and decided to co-found this business together, which I feel like we don't see that very often.
And I've even heard that some investors like, would an investor look down on, husband and wife co-founder? Which that I find is a little odd. Like, we know each other better than any two co-founders could.
I love this. This is like the best story for founders. It's so good. Hi everyone, I'm Dikla from Scruff and Smooth, and today we're kicking off our Founders Journey series. Our very first guests that we have on here are Bani and Jon from OffCourt. This is really exciting because I know you guys just launched in the last year, so there's so much for us to uncover and talk about here. Thank you so much both for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
So yeah, let's dive right into it. OffCourt, take us all the way back and tell us what inspired you to even get started and to create OffCourt.
Yeah, I can share my side and Jon can jump in and share his, but I think it was about 2018 and I was going to Columbia Business School, working also at the same time at Glossier. And it was actually Jon's idea and I took it to a class project and ended up interviewing lots of people. The more I talked to guys, the more I was convinced that there is something there in the men's market. I just as a background, I do come from family business in beauty. So I've been in this industry for a while, but never really worked in it. So maybe Jon, you can share your inspiration.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Bani says it kind of came from me, and yeah, it did somewhat. The men's space just feels a little bit old, a little stale. It felt like I was still using the same products that I had been using since high school, which they're fine, they're great products. I just felt like maybe I wanted to graduate to something new. Bani would bring home some great products. He had lots of like
premium stuff,
high quality premium products, but they were like 10 times the price of what I was using. And I honestly just felt like I wanted to graduate to something nicer. And that was almost too premium. Those were more beauty oriented. I wanted, a similar product, just higher quality, a little cleaner. And the thing that really got me was fragrance. Is the fragrances still just smelled like high school, college to me. It just kind of felt like it wasn't as premium. And I like fragrances and I have fine fragrances. So I really thought there was a chance to just improve on that. So I just kind of said, this is my perspective as a guy. I think that there's probably other people like that. And then Bani, being the very data-driven person that she is, she said she interviewed a lot of people. She interviewed about 250 people for customer discovery to say,
that's amazing.
Here's what we're thinking. What do you think? And I mean, it certainly refined it and it shaped it, but generally that was the initial idea, and then took it and ran with it.
Yeah, and I think just to add to it, from there we came up with the idea of making the product really focused in post-workout and make it easy to carry in your gym bag and part of your athletic routine, which is what differentiates us. That was initially positioning. From there, we took it to product development, and with our chemists, we studied what would happen if you're an active man, meaning if you sweat more, you shower multiple times a day, and how do we create products to help you transition from a moment of sweat to whatever is next in your life.
Okay, so the idea is this is for people who go to the gym often, or maybe they're runners, they're sweating throughout the day, and then it's kind of like the next step after, if I'm understanding correctly.
Originally, yes. And what we are seeing now is a lot of guys are using them in different ways, especially with fragrance products. I think fragrance is one of our core competencies. And, if someone likes the scent, they would just use it all day, every day, a couple times a day. But the use case we created is just that pre or post workout moment.
Okay. Yes, makes sense. So tell us more. You guys mentioned like the fragrance, and every time you talk about it, I feel like you guys have kind of like this glowy haze over you of like, it must smell really good. So tell us about the process of, how did you come up with the scents that you came up with? What is that process like? Where did you even start?
Well, that's coming up with the fragrances is probably the hardest thing. It's not, you can't just show up to a fragrance house and say, hey, like we are a new brand, nobody knows us, and can you make us a fragrance? So we did that actually at first, and we weren't getting any results. We were just getting like library samples of existing fragrances, and it smells like everything else in the market. And by that, we really mean, maybe heavier, very cologne-y scents that are very overpowering, or
I think there were also classic masculine scents.
Yeah.
Again, almost hearkening back in my memory to what the scent I used to have and was almost avoiding. Now looking for something new, and I feel like scents have really evolved. Men and women have kind of changed their preferences. The overlap between what's considered masculine, feminine, there's so many unisex scents now that people are really drawn towards. So what Bani's saying is when we went to the traditional places where the door was open for us, we were getting very traditional scents.
And we just couldn't see that being part of our brand. So we found a fragrance consultant who's considered one of the best industry experts. She's called The Nose. And we persuaded her to work with us. And then from her side, we were introduced to 3 of the top fragrance houses that we still work with. And it's a very interesting process. It is art and science. They definitely have the data in terms of, trends, what the market is liking, but we make every scent from scratch, not even with a benchmark. We just show up and say the emotions we are looking to create. And from there, we go through that creation process, which typically takes like 6 to 9 months. For the current collection.
Yeah, and maybe to go back to that, because I would say first, as Bani was indicating, there are a lot of gatekeepers in this industry, and it can be hard to get in as a new brand. I think fragrance was one of the hardest. Like some is on production, especially for ours, like an aerosol can. Like there's just high production, but this was a very difficult one that we knew had to be good. Once we got through that, gatekeeper, and we're with the fragrance houses, what we actually started with first is, so this was our first brand, our first design for OffCourt body spray. So what they first want to do is a couple of things, and it's a really fun creative process. The perfumers are such creative people. It's like they're just contagious to be around. They have such a passion for it. So you bring in the branding, and they get to visually see it. And then we tell them, as Bani said, the emotion you want. And what we were saying is exactly that transition. We want it to be something that, one, you finished a workout, you put this on, or it can be whatever your sweat is. It can be a commute, it can be, anything you're doing, and it's just instantly refreshing, but in a new way. We wanted it to be a new sense of like a refreshing scent that wasn't like a classic, I don't know, like Fougere, like a Davidoff Cool Water, or a Polo Sport is like a classic athletic scent you would think of, which are great, but we wanted a new sense of that. So that's the challenge we gave them. And then, you go through the really fun process of starting with different families of scents and narrowing it down and then refining it. And so this is the very first one, and maybe you can tell them about that.
Yeah, and for this, the motivation was we were looking for something that is genderless. We truly believe that fragrances are becoming more and more genderless, but we wanted to have a touch of maybe like, traditional wood to make it a little bit more masculine. And it was all about like movement, energy, that clean, fresh feeling post-workout.
So that is fresh citron and driftwood.
Yes. And then from there, we're like, okay, we can't just release one fragrance to the market because fragrances are very subjective, you can't just say there's one scent and everybody should like it. So we then went and developed 2 more fragrances.
This is what a 3-pack of a trio pack of our body sprays is. There's 2 more in there.
And most people buy the 3 and, figure out what they like and just put that on repeat. In this one, this is our second scent, which is fig leaves and white musk. This is probably, I would say, the most unique one. It is like a green, vibrant scent, kind of medium body, I would say.
Yeah, and the white musk in it, some people get confused, just musk. I did. I thought musk was going to be like a heavy, animal scent. White musk, totally different. Very, very clean. It almost has the scent of like clean, fresh laundry. So again, has that nice, refreshing feeling. And then the last one that we did is coconut water and sandalwood. So it's kind of a charcoal can. Coconut water, again, it's the coconut water, not coconut. So it's not what you might expect of some people think of like suntan lotion.
Yeah, it's not that.
Doesn't get that at all, but it has a nice kind of fruity sweetness to it. There's a little twist of black pepper in it, and then it has a nice woody base. This one's definitely our longest lasting one. And so most people, like we say, are buying all three, and we kind of find like this is like a quick hit of freshness. We say it usually lasts 4 to 6 hours. This would be on the other end of the spectrum. This is our longest lasting one. So it tends to be preferred by people who are going to be using it as a deodorant. They want to apply it once in the morning, it lasts all day. So that's the range. Yeah.
Things like fig leaves and white musk, like how did you know about these scents going into it, or was this mostly, the experts that you partnered with that really helped you find these?
So we don't specify ingredients, and I think that kind of limits the creative process. We kind of go through, and to be honest, when we were smelling some of these, we didn't even know what we were smelling. We don't even always like ask what is in them, because we just wanted to, we don't want that to impact our decision making. And every sample almost, we have a test group as well, so we run it by them. And then, from there we narrow down, and then at the end they send us what is in these cans. So it was not really intentional.
No, we keep the brief very, as Bani said, like intentional of the emotion we want or the purpose. This one, we said we want it to be our lightest, our freshest. We want it to be like the lightest scent as well. So it's more top note heavy, more of the citrus burst to it. Green, again, driven by the can. We actually designed the color first, and we had this, and we said, we want this. And we said, it makes sense to have maybe a green scent that would come out of it. But again, you give the perfumers. And then with the charcoal can, given the color, we said we want this to be our heaviest, longest lasting. So the perfumers, again, they know what kind of base you have to put in, kind of like the wood base and notes that will really last.
I think that's the key, is like the color of packaging determines so much of the fragrance.
Wow.
So this is, you can't, like, if this was red, it would have smelled differently, than this color. So it kind of all goes together.
That's amazing. I would have never thought that would be like the starting point for getting this. And then you mentioned that you got to work with some really big experts in the field, and that you had to persuade this lady who you called the nose to work with you. Like, how did you do that?
Well, we reached out to her. It was a cold reach out, and she said, sorry, I don't work with small brands. And she worked with, the biggest CPG customers in the world.
And fine perfumers.
And we said, well, let us tell you why we should work together. And we persuaded her, and we love her and enjoy really working with her. But it was a process to persuade her to work with us.
Wow, that's so amazing.
They're taking a big risk on any startup, and the fragrance houses are too, because ultimately at the end of the day, they want to invest hundreds of hours, more than that, from all the huge team that is involved in this. It's shocking when you go into the meeting how many different people come into it. There's the perfumers and the evaluators, and you have the business development people. But it really ultimately, at the end of the day, they have to believe in your vision, that it will go out there, it will survive in the market, it will represent them well, and you'll sell some volume. And so every time they take on a new startup, they're investing in that relationship. So I think with us, we had to, and really it was Bani, who had to persuade them that we had a differentiated idea and that we had a good shot at being successful.
Wow. Nicely done. Yeah. And good for you for not taking no for an answer, right? Like, you got to know, and you were like, nope, it's going to happen anyway.
And I think for us, part of the vision is we really see OffCourt as a fragrance brand at the core. We don't define ourselves as a skincare brand necessarily. We are a fragrance brand at the core, and fragrance is a big part of what differentiates us from the market. So it was a very key strategic decision.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing that we had, I think, determined at that point is, one, fragrance was key, but we had gone out and tested some of the available options out there of like people who are out there looking for work and can be fragrance consultants. We had seen some of the results that had come back.
Horrible.
And we were just
really? Oh,
I wouldn't say horrible, expected. We would have just been another body spray brand, exactly what was expected on the market, with maybe modern packaging. And I just don't think it would have been enough. So we had a firm belief, like we need a different approach. We need fine fragrance to bring into the mass market. And the only way you get fine fragrance is by working with the top experts.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally hear you, because especially as founders, we have this vision, and I feel like you guys had it especially challenging because your vision involved scents in it, and trying to express that through a vessel of a bunch of different people who are working on that, I feel like is very challenging.
I think anytime on the creative process, we're not the most creative people. We're more, I think, analytical, and we're good at product development, and we have, more finance backgrounds and things like that. But yeah, you're right. You have to know like what your vision is, and then you have to be able to give a brief and then let go a little bit to let the creatives do their thing. I think the same thing most founders, the first point they get to is when it comes to your brand identity. You're going in there, you put in all this thought to it, and you're handing it over to your creative and say, here's what I want it to be. And you're kind of trusting them to come back with a brand identity. You go through that. And exactly the same thing when it comes with fragrance. It's such a creative process.
And I think it's all about trust. It's about finding partners that they are expert in what they do, and then knowing what you want, but then also trusting them to know that they will take you there. And I think that has been key for us. Yeah,
trust, but then I think the really important thing with the creative process, especially with fragrance, you have to know, what your convictions are, because you walk into a room with experts that know so much more than we could possibly know about this. They know all the market data. They know all these technical terms that we don't even know. Yeah. They're smelling things we can never hope to smell. But then we have to tell them when they're wrong, going in the wrong direction. So being able to kind of isolate like a few foundational things, and then remembering that they don't know our client as well as we do our customer. So that's the one thing we could always come back to. We'd say, hey, you might have a very good point of view about this from a fragrance, but here's what our customer's expectation is. And as long as you have convictions in that and give them that direction, they can go through and, deliver you what we needed.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. And it's really good. You guys were able to speak up for your customers and for the people who are really going to enjoy this, despite the fact that there are experts in the room, who know this industry so well. And so I feel like that's a pretty hard battle to win too.
It can be. I mean, they're great at working with us. As long as, like I say, as long as it's more a battle with yourself, we'll have the confidence to stand up and be like, actually, we need X.
These are moments where Jon is great at in our working together.
Oh, I hear you. It's so hard. So let's talk about this a little bit, because you mentioned things like trust, and Jon excels at certain things. Bani, you excel at different things. I understand you two are married and decided to co-found this business together, which I feel like we don't see that very often. We don't see co-founders who are married because it's a challenge. It's hard. You're together at all times. Like how has that been? And was there like a decision you had to come to on like, should we do this together? Should we not? Or was it pretty natural for you to say, yep, we're going to go do this?
Yeah, good question. You want to take
Yes, I'll do the first shot. I think it was very natural. Jon and I had worked together in the past before OffCourt. We both were a strategy consultant in past lives. And so we know, working together, but our working style is very different. So for me, I could not have seen doing this with anybody else, to be honest. I feel like you go in as a founder and it really takes over your life, and you've got to do it with people you like to work with and people you understand. So, I didn't have anybody else that I thought would be a good fit for, starting OffCourt. It was just very natural. My expertise, or what I bring to the table, is marketing and product development, and what Jon brings. Jon is the customer, and he tests every single product, but it's also everything else from strategy, finance, operations, and we kind of work together on some of the things as well. Yeah, that's my answer. I don't know.
Yeah, from my perspective, I'm working together. It's interesting. So, question of, was it intentional or did it just kind of naturally happen? I think it just naturally happened. We definitely excel at different things, which is helpful. We have very different working styles, which can be challenging.
Yes.
But I honestly think it was probably a little more challenging for me at first, was just accepting, well, first, I think it's important that there's a clear CEO and Bani's the CEO. Before that had been defined and we're kind of building up the vision together, we hadn't actually had that, okay, Bani is the CEO and has final say. So then there can be a little bit. And I think it's interesting. It took me maybe a little while of working where I realized like Bani is right 99% of the time. So it's easy to just now let go. But at first, you know, I'd be like, I have a little disagreement. I had my own idea of what this should be. And I thought, well, it's kind of my idea. And it's kind of a product for guys. And I'm a guy, I'm the target market. Like I should know. But Bani is, doesn't hold on to her idea. It's like, what will do best? What is best for the company? What does the market need? What does our customer need? Where I was thinking a little more from my perspective of what I want. So I initially maybe pushed back on a little things and was like, it's changing the vision. But Bani's going out there and talking to hundreds of people and saying, this is what will be successful from what the customer wants. I'm talking to retailers. I'm talking to online experts. This is what's going to be successful in the market. And I think once we, you know, had got this vision and we really sat down and said, okay, it makes sense, Bani is the CEO. Now it's really easy. Now we kind of have a clear sense of it. But for the most part, we still collaborate on most things and, you know, we agree on 99% of things.
Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I think it's so hard, but it's clear that you two both have really good respect for each other. You have clear roles. So I feel like this is so awesome for you to be able to make this work.
Yeah. And I think it's also just like, you know, I think about, there are tons of things I can't do well, and I'm very open and honest about it. I'll like literally send them to Jon and be like, you would be better at doing this than me. And can you help me here? Or vice versa. I think it's, at the end of the day, it's a teamwork between the two of us, and whoever can do it better, I think is the right fit for it. But we work well together, which I think is the best part of it.
And I can understand why some, you know, spouses partners might not want to work together. Maybe they want some of the, you know, separation and might not want that overlap. They have their own thing. And I've even heard that some investors, would an investor look down on, you know, husband and wife co-founder, which that I find is a little odd. Like we know each other better than any two co-founders could. We already know, we're already in this together.
I also think that COVID had something to do with this, just like being locked down in a house.
Yeah.
You know, I just couldn't see anybody else that we could, you know, we get like many packages a day, and we're like constantly testing everything together. So it just honestly makes everything so much easier that we are a husband and wife.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love this. This is like the best story for founders. It's so good.
Thank you.
So take me to like the moment of naming. Is that something pre-Bani being identified as CEO? How'd you guys make that decision on naming it OffCourt?
So we found an amazing designer, and also picking the designer was one of the hardest challenges for us from the beginning. Again, back to the trusts, we talked to so many people, and there was one individual that I was like, it would be my dream if she does our designing. And, you know, we had a first call with her. I had a first call with her, and she's like, I'm going on a honeymoon. I'll be back in about a couple of months. I'll let you know when I'm back. And I was like, wow, a couple of months. I mean, I can't wait a couple of months. You know, everything goes so fast. And you know, I was like, okay, I just kept her in back of my mind. And then she emailed me a couple of months and said, okay, let's meet. And we met in New York, and she already had like 20 names.
Oh, wow.
And the moment I saw OffCourt, I was like, this is it. And, you know, before.
Well, I think we have to rewind just a little bit. Okay. First of all, I'll tell you Bani's style and then rewind how we did. So Bani's style is look at almost everything. Like look at
really
every designer and see, and a whole spectrum of them. So look at the classic CPG, you know, branding companies that are out there, meet with them, get a proposal, understand their process, see all their work. But then it will look at thousands of things. When she doesn't quite know what she wants, keep looking until she has a vision of it.
And that's very true. I had no idea, like, how do you even pick an agency or an individual?
So see the whole spectrum of what I was out there, as opposed to meeting with 3 and saying that was the best of the 3. Benny's still like, well, I don't know if it's the best that's out there because I have to see the spectrum. Once she sees the spectrum, she saw this designer and said, this is the designer. I'm going to go after her hard. Like, that's who I want to do it. Same thing with naming. We had gone through 100 rounds of names. Like, we did our own, we hired a couple different companies, we looked at everything. Each time I'd get a list and I'd say, yeah, that one's pretty good. Yeah, that one could work. I like that one.
Do you want to share some of the examples of those names?
No, terrible. We don't want to do
Yes.
it. So Bani would just be like, okay, we'll put that as a placeholder, but I'm not satisfied yet. So all just to say, it had been going on for months. When we hired this designer, she came and she's like, I also have some names. Just a thought, because I know you're not like sold on your name yet. OffCourt was on there, and then we were like, okay, yeah, that's better.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a good story. Like, she was on it.
Exactly.
Very, very
She's yeah, she was the dream designer for us to work with. And I think that's where we were like, okay, we looked at so many people, but we found the best fit for us. And she truly delivered, because I think once you go the path of like creating a brand, it stays there. The foundation and the identity is really, really important. Similar to the fragrances. It's not something that you can easily change, and rebrands are expensive and really a lot of work. So we wanted to make sure the important things, we get them right from the beginning.
I also think there's a couple things. We always come back down to like principles to make decisions, because there's a lot of unknowns. On this, one principle is, this is a consumer product good. Brand is critically important. It's not an app. It's not a piece of software. Brand has to be acceptable. No, the brand has to be outstanding. We also then looked and said, well, we've had DTC, direct to consumer wave happen, and there's a lot of branding companies responsible for that. So they're the natural ones to go to, but those have already happened. Those were brands created 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Our brand is going to be launching in a couple of years. Like, we need to be ahead of that wave, not on or behind it. So we knew it wanted to be something different. And then the other thing that was important, we realized, I think, as we were interviewing some of these companies, is this big difference. Like, we're small, we're a team of 2. We don't have a team behind us. Some of the big branding agencies are, here is your brand book. Good luck. Now your team can go and take it and implement it. We realized, like, we just weren't set up to succeed with one of these big agencies. We needed someone that was a little smaller, hands-on, had worked with smaller startups before, could actually help us now take that and implement it into launching the company. And so that's where we said we wanted a smaller independent one.
Got it. That's amazing. That's such a good story. It's so hard to find the right name, the right feel for all your marketing material, and to make sure that it's like really conveying what your product wants to say. And I feel like that's one of the hardest challenges for founders. So you're working through designs and naming, you're smelling things left and right to make sure you've got the right scent. Like, how long does this go on until you launch the products?
Forever.
Honestly, with COVID, that's what happened.
Took a while.
We were supposed to launch summer of 2020. But then, the first few months of COVID, we were just like sitting, like, could we ever even do this? What is going to happen? Everything was on hold. You know? And then kind of we restarted back and ended up launching March 2021. Massive delays, lots of supply chain problems. Like, it was just, we got a bit unlucky, but at the same time, like, we kind of made it happen in the most uncertain times. But I would say the timeline, initial idea was 2018.
2 years is what it would have been, no COVID.
Yeah.
Ended up being
2.5-ish.
Yeah, a little more than 2.5. But I would say, everyone's different in how particular they are.
Yeah.
But to make a product in, personal care product, what do you think? Like, a minimum 1 year would be the shortest. 1.5 years is about as quick as you can reasonably do it to get through the creations, the rounds, the testing of the product, the stability, and then go through a manufacturing round. I think about 1.5 years is the fastest you go from start until you have a finished product.
And just to add here, for anyone listening to this, if you white label, it's a much quicker process. Again, for us, it was one of the key decisions from day one, was to actually create something that is better and different. And because we were going to solve a problem of someone who's going to the gym and sweating more than an average person, we had a vision of a product and what the product needs to do to fulfill that need. So we didn't go to, a white label product route, which would have been much, much, much easier.
Right.
But, you would end up with another product in the market. We actually custom formulated everything, which comes with its own challenges. But, we work with a chemist, develop a formula, test, multiple rounds, and then take that to a manufacturer who then creates it for us, which is why it takes that long.
Yeah, but so worth it, right? To have created this thing that doesn't exist out there, that's so perfect for your customers, as grueling as it must have been for a really long time for you to get there. I'm sure it was well worth the effort than white labeling.
Honestly, yes, but I'll also tell you that we would talk to the manufacturer and they wouldn't even talk to us if our minimum order quantity wasn't 50,000 units of like aerosol. And I was like,
yeah,
how could anybody do that? So we were like, okay, the only way for us to make this is to work with a chemist, make a formula, and then find a manufacturer who can do a smaller run. I think in the industry right now, there are so many new brands. Contract manufacturers have to invest a lot of time in the brand. So, they're not really there to make every tweak you need, make sure it's clean, but also effective. There are just so many considerations to making a product. And it's very hard to find like that partner who would do it, which is why I think as a new brand, the right way is, owning your own formula. But then if you find partners down the line who could meet the minimum order quantities and they are good partners, I think there's definitely, a way to work with them and create newer products, but that is not available to brands just starting out.
Yeah, gosh, like it's so hard to start out, right? Like, how do you meet a minimum order of 50,000 just to work with somebody? That's just wild, as a startup.
But then they also tell you, like, give me your projection for the next 5 years. Is like,
and you're like, whoa, dude, like I'm just designing over here, okay?
You think about the next 3 months, not like 5 years.
Yeah, so like let's talk about that timeline. Okay, so you launched and how they've been since then, and kind of what are you foreseeing for the future?
Yeah, we launched in March with these 3 guys, and we had a really fun launch. I think it did much better than we expected. We got a bunch of awards from we got a Men's Health Award, Ask Men Award. It was nice to see that people are recognizing that this is something new, upgraded, different from other body sprays in the market. Shortly after, actually not short, 6 months almost later, we launched our second SKU, which is a facial moisturizer, really designed for that post-workout moment when you're still sweating, but you don't want to put something heavy on your skin. So it's like super lightweight formula. And then just this past, I want to say like winter, we did a collaboration with a celebrity gym in LA and New York called Dog Pound. And we love the fragrance development, and they wanted a custom exclusive scent. So we made this with them, which is on our website and at Dog Pound. So we released this. Yeah, and then we have other products coming to the market this year.
Awesome. That's exciting. Okay. So going places, things are going well then.
Yeah, things are going really well. And, we're excited to grow. I think the best part of all of this is people are liking the scents and keep coming back and buying more, which I think is great. And that's just kind of get us going and pushing forward to bring more products to the market. And just the customer feedback and review.
Yeah. So good. This has been so awesome. I'm like so lucky to get the insider scoop on how everything happened for you. And I'm so happy for you. Like now that I know how grueling this journey is to really create something like this, like I have even more respect for you. So thank you for taking the time to share with us. And I hope people will come and try out the products and really enjoy them because you put so much of yourselves into them. You can find the products on scruffandsmooth.com and let us know what you think. And thank you again for joining.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Deepa. This was fun. Really appreciate it.